Hey, Miss Gideon here. I'm going to talk about and show you how to do add and subtract algebraic expressions. And I have with fractions because those seem to be harder for my students, so we're going to just start it. Now, following order of operations, we're supposed to do parentheses first, but notice that we have unlike terms inside parentheses, so we can't combine this. So we're going to start with the distributive property. I'm going to take the 1/2, I'm going to multiply it by a positive x, which gives me 1/2 x. I'm going to put a little work area over on the side here. Then I'm going to take 1/2 and I'm going to multiply it by a positive 4. So if I do 1/2 times a 4, remember 4 over 1 is a fraction. So 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2. And then 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I have a plus 2. I'm going to bring down my plus sign here, and then I'm going to do my 1/4 times 4x. So 1/4 times 4x over 1. I can leave that x out of it if I remember to add it in. I'm just going to leave it here for visual purposes. So 1 times 4x is 4x. 4 times 1 is 4. 4's cancel out, and I'm left with 1x or x. You don't have to have that 1 there, but sometimes it's helpful for us to remember that there's an x there. So I'm going to leave it in there. And then finally, I'm going to take my 1/4 times my negative 2. So I've got 1/4 times a negative 2 over 1. Anytime I multiply a positive and negative, I have a negative as an answer. So 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 1 is 4. So negative 2/4 reduces, remember these are both even, so I can divide by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. It reduces to 1/2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I have a minus 1/2. Now I go ahead and do the distribute, or I combine my like terms. So I've got an x here, I've got a positive x, 1/2 x, and a positive 1x. If I add 1/2 plus 1, I get 1 and 1/2. So I've got 1 and 1/2 x. These are gone. Now I'm going to combine my plus 2 minus 1/2. So when I'm doing that, I'm actually subtracting 1/2. And I know if I take away 1/2 from 2, I'm left with a positive 1 and 1/2. Now you could use your calculator, Decimal's calculator. You could make 2 minus your 1/2 and make it a fraction, 2 over 1, and then you have to find a common denominator. But I already know if I take a half away from something, it's going to leave me with a half. So this is your final answer there. So moving on for another example, I want to do the subtraction ones because they tend to throw the students off the most. So what I want to get you in the habit of doing is when you have a subtraction, and only when you have a subtraction in this part of the expression, you change it to an addition just like we did before, and then you change the signs following. These are in parentheses, so I changed both of those. So I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to use my plus now, plus a negative b, and that could be actually, let's just make it easier. Let's just make it plus a negative 1b for our purposes. That will help us remember that there's a 1 there. A negative 1b plus 2. And I do not even need this, well, I don't need that parenthesis there, but because I made it plus a negative, I'm going to put it there. So now let's do our distributive property over here. 2 times 10 is 20, and I keep the b with it. 2 times a positive 4 is 8, so it's plus 8. Now I'm doing plus a negative b, so I'm going to leave it at plus a negative b for a minute, and that's a 1b, and then plus 2. So all I did was bring this part down. Now let's look for common terms, like terms. I've got a 20b, and I've got a negative 1b. So 20 plus negative 1, they're opposite signs, so I got 20 plus a negative 1, which is really 20 minus 1. So you have 19b here, and then I've used those, so now I'm going to look at the plus 8 and the plus 2, so 8 plus 2, they're both positive, is plus 10. So I get 19b plus 10. I can't combine any further because the 10 doesn't have a b with it. And then finally, I want to do one with the fractions, again, using a subtraction so you can see in practice. So I'm going to change my subtraction to an addition, and I'm going to make that a -7. I'm not going to change anything else inside the parentheses because that 7 is outside. So let's work on that and go from there. So I have to use my distributive property again. So 1/3 times k is 1/3 k. Now I'm going to take 1/3 times a +9. Let's make my work area over here. So 1/3 times 9, or 9/1. That gives me 9/3. 1 times 9 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. 9 divided by 3, remember the fraction bar means division, gives me a 3. So I have +3. So this is simplified. Now we're going to look at the -7. So I'm going to take a -7 and I'm going to multiply it by the 1/6 k. So -7 really becomes -7/1 times 1/6 k. -7 times a +1 is a -7. 1 times 6 is 6, and I keep the k. So this becomes a -7/6 k. Then I have to do the -7 times my +2. So -7 times a +2, opposite signs, is going to be, this is times, that dot means times a +2. The opposite signs, you're going to have a negative in your answer. So remember, when you multiply opposite signs, it's always negative. So a negative, so a -14. Now I have to combine terms. So this is a little bit lengthy, so take your time with it. I'm going to erase my workspace and give me a little bit more space to finish this out, because we do need to show our work and understand the process. So now if I look, I've got a 1/3 k and I've got a -7/6 k. So I have to get a common denominator. When I add or subtract fractions, I have to get a common denominator. So I have a 1/3, and I'm going to leave the k out of it for a minute because I'm going to do -7/6. So when I have signs that are opposite, I want you to know that you take the larger number. So the larger number here is the 7/6. Well, let's do it this way first. Let's get our common denominator. So I know that 6 is my common denominator because 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 cannot be less than 6, so this is your common denominator, least common multiple. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. 1 times 2 gives me 2. So now I have, this is a -7/6. So I have 2/6, take away 7/6. When we are subtracting opposite signs, I can add, so I have a -7, take away 2. I subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the absolute value, the larger number, so 7. 7 take away 2 is 5, so it's a -5/6 k. Boy, that was a lot of work. I hope it made sense to you. So combining these two, I get a -5/6 k. Now I have a +3 and a -14. So +3 minus 14. Opposite sign, so I subtract. 14, take away 3 is an 11. The larger absolute value is my 14, so it's going to be a -11. Hopefully this makes sense to you. Come to live lesson. We'll practice. Ask me questions.